And it's just that the American way of life depends on the exploited labor of black people. And now you have entire like economies around prison labor and in bonds people, and like there's just an entire labor that depends on black people being vulnerable, and then trying to that secures that succeeds only because black people are politically and economically vulnerable. Um, so, and then there's politics, right? So that's another form, and politics includes like what we're allowed to govern and talk about in society. We're not even allowed to talk about that quality of vulnerability in order to redress it because that's seen as anti-black. So you have to understand that when we do this, we actually create a distorted population, and distorted in a way that disproportionately hurts the most vulnerable. And here's the myth why the myth of meritocracy hurts kids of color. If you teach kids that everything is fair and everything is as it should be, they end up blaming themselves for things that they shouldn't blame themselves for. If you don't teach them systems analysis, they individualize and personalize and privatize a lot of things that are the properties of systems and are properly the properties of systems. And they need to understand systems and how their self is realized through these systems in order to understand how to govern and change systems and secure justice for themselves and the people. And if you don't do that, they end up individualizing it. They take bad risks, and like it's a great article from the Atlantic. If you teach kids that life is fair, then they end up individualizing a lot of things that they should be redressing. And that's a problem for anyone who cares about justice. But make no mistake, Cassidy's tweet is not a accident. There's a lot at stake in papering over how the functioning of America depends on qualities of systemic degradation. There's no shame in actually addressing it. And look, the functioning of the Greek democracy also depended on slavery, right? So we should actually look at, look, we don't know what it means to have a self-governing society that lives up to its concept. And we need to actually do that work. But assuming that we do know what it means for a self-governing society to live up to its concept is how we get ourselves into trouble. And is how we just continue standing orders of degradation that need to be redressed if we're going to actually be the great nation that we like to tell ourselves we are. We need to take it seriously. What would it be like to democratize power and the conditions of citizenship and self-determination throughout the populace? We haven't done that. Right now, we have an internal colony of black people who are scared to talk like I am talking now, and are threatened with action if they talk like I am talking. I've been threatened with all sorts of actions, and yet I survive. And if you want me to keep doing what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, and $50 a month, and I'll just kind of keep putting this together from my, not unthoughtful perspective about the problems we face today and how to make black communities whole. Because we need to actually think through some of these institutions, including education and what we tell ourselves about ourselves, in order to make ourselves a better people. Right? So, yeah, think about what it means that a sitting congressman says, critical race theory has no place in our schools. We should be teaching our children why the United States is the greatest country in the world. That is that's a danger for the entire world, because that's the kind of thought that gets us into wars we shouldn't be in, because we don't understand that sometimes we're in wars we shouldn't be in, right? That leads to militarism because we don't learn lessons from our mistakes. If we're too busy talking about how great we are and how well we do everything and how much our systems work. So this is actually a very, very dangerous ideology, that you can't both be critical of your standing practices and see the virtues of them and see how they're intertwined and try to, distill or purify the virtues of your standing practices by taking away the degradation. And if you don't if you don't understand how racism and, in a sense, militarism is part of the American, not just an accidental part of American identity, but a necessary part of the American functioning, you don't understand too much about America. Like, our dollar is pegged to our nuclear submarines. Like, our dollar is strong because of our military might. You just need to understand what that means.